A little information. I live in Denver, Colorado. For those that don't know, it and its surrounding cities are all connected for the most part, making for a pretty large urban area. My dad, sister, and I are Lakota Sioux Native American from Rosebud Tribe in South Dakota. I'm currently 19 years old. For pretty much my whole life, or at least for as far back as I can remember, I've had reoccurring dreams about a lake, somewhere in a forest. When I was younger, I would always see the lake from an aerial view and was never too close. The lake always had around 7 creatures, some in the shallow water, some on shore walking around. From the distance I was at, I can only really tell that they had white, grayish skin and were humanoid. The lake and the creatures always gave me a very uncomfortable feeling, despite being so far away. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had the dream, but in recent years, I began to get closer to the lake and the creatures. But I'll get back to that soon. When I was probably about 11 or 12, I was sleeping on the top of my bunk in my sister's bed. I woke up in the middle of the night, which wasn't normal for me when I was at that age. I lifted my head up a bit to look at the door, and my dad was standing in the doorframe. He waved for me to follow him and walk down the hall out of sight. I jumped down off the bed and followed. When I got into the hall, I noticed to my left that my dad's bedroom door was closed. It was never closed when he was not inside. I then looked left, down the hall, and saw my dad turn the corner at the end of the hall to the living room. I began to follow and got about halfway down the hall when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I flinched and turned around. It was my dad? Right then, without any transition, I went from completely normal to crying, covered in tears and in panic. When I say no transition, I mean absolutely zero transition. I'm not sure how to explain it with words. I can only hope you understand what I mean. My dad began to ask what was wrong, and through tears, I pointed down the hall and tried to tell him that I was following him and that someone or something was in our house. Our kitchen ran adjacent to our hall, so I dragged my dad and my dad through our kitchen to enter the living room from a different place than the person I was following did. There was nothing. Our blinds were all closed. The sliding glass door was closed. Blind shut in front of that too. It was gone. My dad tried to calm me down and brought me back to bed. As I was writing that out, I remembered something that happened in the house we lived in prior. I had a room in the basement with the same bunk bed. On multiple occasions before falling asleep or after waking up in the middle of the night, I would look at the door, and standing in the door was a black, shadowy humanoid figure. It never did anything, just stood and looked at me. Now, before going back to the dreams, it's worth noting that in the past 6 years, I've done a lot of martial arts training, some jiu-jitsu and taekwondo, training with knives, swords, and other weapons of the sort, as well as parkour, if you want to count that as a martial art. As a result, I'm not exactly a pushover. I can fight pretty well and have a lot more confidence. Now, the most recent dream about the lake and the creatures, and definitely the most terrifying. I was on the shore of the lake, not in the air like normal. Immediately, I knew where I was, and I was in a panic. I looked to the water, and there were 4 of them, walking in the shallows, and there were 2 in front of me on land, being a lot closer than normal. I could tell they had long arms with sharp claws, and they were super skinny. I looked around for an escape and saw an opening in the trees, so I ran. I could feel it chasing me. Getting closer, the dread kept getting worse. Eventually, the dread became enough that I could not run anymore. I stopped at a tree and fell to my knees, waiting for the creature to dig its claws into my back. It never happened. Instead, I heard it walking up behind me and start to speak. I can't remember what it said, unfortunately. It kneeled down behind me and began to drag its claws down my back, just hard enough to leave some scratches. I opened my eyes and looked down. I had a knife sheathed on my belt. I'm not sure if it was there the whole time or not. I grabbed the hilt in my left hand and reached for a sharp-looking piece of bark on the ground with my right hand. I spun around quick and slashed at the creature's neck with my knife, and the bark, nothing. I left a gash on its neck, but it didn't react. There was no blood. It just stared at me, smiling. I dropped my knife and the bark, falling back to my knees in defeat. It lifted my head with its claw on my chin, staring at me. It said something along the lines of, "You can't kill me, I'm immortal." And I woke up. Reading this back, it sounds super fictional, even to me, so I don't blame you if you don't believe me, or think it's just a spooky story. This could all just be passed off as an overreactive imagination, sleepwalking, or whatever else, but these don't feel like normal nightmares, and whatever wanted me to follow it that night was too real. It may not have been a skinwalker. That's just what my studies have led me to believe. I've been told it could have been a fleshgate, and that could explain why it took the form of my father. But I don't know for sure. It's been here my whole life, and I at least want to know what it is. Upon moving to South Florida from North Florida, I never thought in the city I would have a close encounter with anything supernatural. As South Florida, minus Everglades and other natural areas, is basically devoid of natural wildlife areas. I currently live in Delray Beach. At the time, 2 years ago, I was in a place called Boca Raton. It was around 10:30 p.m. on a weeknight. I was heading home to my apartment. I was driving on Dixie Highway in North Boca, south of the bar Rock and Angels, and north of all residences. This stretch is pretty desolate, sandwiched between undeveloped land, train tracks, and the back part of an old folks golf club, traveling about 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Ahead of me, I see what appears to be a huge dog. Had more than enough time to come to a safe stop. There was no other cars around me, which, come to think, was weird. But that stretch of road is always pretty busy. Ahead of me, about 15 to 20 feet, is a large male coyote. I had heard from a fellow pet owner about coyotes in the area, but nothing quite like this. Standing perpendicular to the road, smack dab in the middle, he just stares straight ahead of him. Posture relaxed, tails, ears, and eyes alert, but not intent. He literally is just vibing in the middle of the road, looking ahead, aloof. Obviously, he is a finely tuned, highly skilled predator, so I honk. He just turns and looks at me for a few seconds, so I do a little toot toot, as he is still making direct eye contact. Felt like I was being stared right through. So creepy. With me, he slowly saunters out of the road. Again, head turns staying at my car the whole time. I got the funny impression that he was thinking, alright, I'll remember that. And I couldn't shake this feeling the rest of my drive home. Naturally, immediately upon arriving home, I researched Native American coyote omens and found my way via Google rabbit hole to skinwalker legends. And now I'm here, getting goosebumps again. And I don't know coyote behavior. Someone let me know if I'm possibly out in left field, but I have come to understand coyotes to be shy, elusive, and wary of humans unless ill. I work with dogs, understand some dog behavior, and ultimately, what classifies as a large dog. I currently own an 80-pound male dog, and this specimen I saw was what I would label as out of the coyote range, especially from my understanding of South Florida wildlife. This is my personal experience with skinwalkers. I'm half Navajo, half Zuni, live in Gallup, New Mexico for most of my life. Now, I guess where this starts is with a particular group of people that I'm very close with. This friendship between us is important to me. We love each other, and we care for one another. This started when I was young, in the 8th grade. I was with several of my friends skateboarding at Rocky View Elementary. It's night, and we're all having a good time. I'm with my friend Denton, and we're sitting on a sidewalk, and we see this red truck pull into the school's parking lot. The truck made a U-turn and went to the exit they originally came through. Denton and I were observing, so they're by the exit to get out onto the road. But all at once, people hopped out and changed seats. We observed a person or figure coming out of the back door, passenger side, casting a silhouette against the truck. This person or figure then goes near the tailgate and crouches down. All doors close and the truck drives off, leaving this shadowy figure that we thought was a person. The figure disappears with the motion of the truck leaving. It just faded away. My friend freaks out, tells me, "Did you just see that?" And I acknowledged it by just shaking my head. That was it for the night. We told friends. They believed us because they're all very aware of this type of thing that goes down. Now, there was instances when I would be walking home next to the school, and I would get bothered. Walking home for me was going south, and to the east was a field. This field is to the right of the school. When walking home or skating, I would get a fear of that field. Once I had a rock thrown at me from behind, and nobody was there. Skating home, I once seen a black figure behind me. Skating alongside my friends, we've seen this black figure following us, on the same sidewalk, but seen with glances, by glancing at each other to see that we couldn't see or skate into our paths. Certain places were cold along that sidewalk, and only when I'd be heading home alone. Bushes shaking and making obvious noise through the brush. The next significant encounter that happened was when I was in the middle of the town. Late at night, roads are dead, and I'm 12 deep with some grimy friends. We're skating and BMXing near a Taco Bell. Again, my friend and I are off to the side. We're sitting along a road named Aztec Road, westbound. We see a homeless person coming down a lengthy hill, and don't bother to worry. The person is on the other side of the road, walking east, and as they're about 20 feet away, I decide to observe this person. It had a nappy blanket wrapped around itself. The orange-colored streetlights took away a lot of pigmentation, so I assume the color of the blanket is probably gray. As soon as the person begins to get parallel with me, I get an eerie feeling. This thing then looks up towards me, and where the face would be was a deep black. I mean black. It did not have a face. I don't know what it was, but it was like this blanket just wrapped around a non-existent head. There was not enough light to see any face, wearing a hood or not. We even had my friends who were wearing a hood stand up where it was walking and look up towards us. His face was plain as day, visible. Oddly enough, it's summertime. Why blankets? Now, the same year after 4th of July, my friends and I decided to light up some Chinese lanterns early in the morning. We're in a trailer park located on the east side of Gallup. To the south of the trailer park is nothing but desert that eventually leads to the Zuni Mountains. So anyway, we head out south into the field and walk a decent amount, and we reach a point to stop. We start with the first lantern. Its light goes high in the sky, then burns out. As soon as it burned out, we heard a loud cry from the east. It obviously sounded like someone poorly mimicking a coyote's cry. We all got shook just a bit, but decided to do it again. 2 lanterns left. We light the second one, and the same thing happens. We light the third lantern, and after it goes out, the cry is significantly closer. I'd say about 100 to 150 feet away. Now its lights are out, but the sun hasn't peeked over the hogbacks. We can see we're at no problem, but have no visual clue to where the sound came from. The closeness this time scared us, and we headed back to the trailer park. When getting closer to the trailer park, all the dogs within the park started howling and going wild. My friend's dog did the same, and we're out facing the field for most of the morning. My friend's trailer is closest to the field, located at the end of the street. A couple of days later, at the same friend's trailer. So we're out on the street, waiting to serve up some people, and the people wanted to smoke. So we're waiting under the last streetlight on the road. They pull up. Business is business, and we're smoking. In the midst of smoking, we hear a crying, but it's so close. Again, we're under the streetlight, but it sounds like crying, and it's just outside of the illuminated rim of light. It sounds like there's more than 6 people making this noise, and it freaks the buyers out. At this point, we're not showing fear. Denton and I are sort of annoyed, if anything. But the buyers are saying, "What is that? Let's go. Why aren't you all freaking out?" And they proceeded to leave. Anyway, we finished their blunt and went inside. No fear sparked. About a week passed, and during that period, my friend and I went to see a medicine man. What the medicine man told him is that this happened to a group of friends a long time ago. Whatever was bothering us wanted to break up our friendship because it was jealous of the love and friendship that we have for each other. The medicine man told him that it succeeded in doing it for the first time to the original group of people. It broke their friendship up and took one of the people from that group to a cave in Church Rock, New Mexico. It messed him up and made him mentally incapacitated and then sent him back out. The friends seen their friend and knew whatever was bothering them succeeded in getting them. So then comes us, a new group of friends that have nothing but love for each other and everybody. This thing seen us for a long time and decided to act on us that night. It got out from the truck. It was originally bothering the people in that truck, but decided that they were a better target. Denton got blessed and came back to tell us what happened. He said that the medicine man pulled our shoe rippings from ash as well as skateboard pieces. Since we skate and BMX, our shoes tear, boards chip, bearings break, and hardware falls off, and it was collecting a lot of it. I don't believe in Navajo religion or indulging in it, so I prayed. I'm a man of God, and after heavily praying for my friends, everything stopped. Now that was it, except for one instance that I believe shouldn't have happened. In 2018, around October, I was working at the Rio West Mall. I closed up, clocked out, and drove 300 feet to Burger King. Got my food, and it was time to head out to my house, north on Highway 491, originally named 666 Highway. I live 18 miles out of Gallup. It's pitch black, and you can only see distant lampposts all around when you're out there. Anyway, I'm about 4 miles away from home when this happened. I'm speeding, going 75 miles an hour on a 55, in the left lane, and I have my brights on. I see what I think is trash to the edge of the road to my right, and as I'm approaching it, it then looks like a dead animal. Very usual around here. Now I'm about 300 to 400 feet away, and as I'm going, I see this thing get in position. It's still on the ground and is almost in a push-up position, with the elbows out and body flat against the road. It then effortlessly slides against the road and into my lane. I then jolted, hit my brakes, but thought quickly, that's not a good idea. I then let go of the brakes, and for some reason, I turned off my brights, but turned them back on instantly. Now I'm just several feet away, and I smack it. Bump, bump. My truck jumps a bit, baby fishtail, and I keep on going. I start yelling curse words in my truck, because I know I wasn't supposed to see that. Telling myself that wasn't supposed to happen, and I got furious. In my belief, God was telling me to slow down a few miles back. If I did, I believe I wouldn't have seen that. But I didn't listen and kept going 75. So I was mad, yelling it to go away, praying to God and ultimately feeling like a bamf. Because in Navajo religion, you're supposed to be blessed with powder or ashes to be able to kill a skinwalker. I did that with nothing but God. Nobody in my family indulges in Navajo religion, and we all have high belief in God. So I believe I smacked the hell out of whatever that was and killed it. I then got home, but my dogs did not come up to the truck. They were smelling from a distance but whining, and I told them to shut up. It's over with. They did right after. I woke my mom, told her, and she said go to bed. Typical Navajo mother talk. Hope you all enjoyed. I'm no longer bothered, nor my friends. I was at my friend's house. He lives around a lot of woods in a small town. It was around 2 a.m. Me and my friend were just hopping off of Modern Warfare 2 when we needed to put his dogs up for the night. So, we walked to them and put them up. But we could not find the cat, and we didn't want the dogs getting a hold of the cat. So we looked around outside until we finally found him on the front porch. We put him inside and walked out to go back to my friend's house. My friend basically has 2 houses. So we stepped out the front door onto the back deck, when we hear a cat about 50 yards away in the woods screeching like it's being attacked. So we assume it's his other cat, so we call his dad. He is a veteran in the Marines, basically meaning he has seen some stuff. So he comes out full on Marine mode with his AR-15 and flashlight scanning the woods, when he hears a kind of almost like hissing, but not a hissing noise. It was almost like something big was out of breath. We got really quiet and listened to it, and it just kept making a blowing noise. But then we noticed it was to the right of us 1 second, and the next, it was right in front of us without making any noise. As anyone would be my friend, my dad shook it off and fired off 4 rounds into the woods. It got quiet, but then seconds later, the noise resumed, but it was moving all over the woods and making no noise at all. Eventually, my friend's dad decided to push us to the woodline with a gun and flashlight in hand. The thing then came right in front of him. He described it as being around eye level with him, since he's around 6 foot. But what really bothered me is that it wasn't afraid of gunshots or people. Eventually, after not ever being able to see it, we gave up and called it a night around 3 a.m. The cat did not come out at all. We began walking back to his house when we heard it come up after about 30 feet to our right, so we rushed it to find nothing at all. Me and my friend and his dad go inside talking about how messed up the situation was. Me and my friend started doing animal research and couldn't find any type of animal that made that noise. It just messes with my head that an animal or creature has the cojones to stand its ground while people are surrounding it and shooting at it. It just made no sense and still does not. It's the next night now, around 12:45 a.m., and me and my friend bought some chicken and placed it on the woodline. We are sitting outside right now, waiting with a spotlight for something. Whatever it is, we want it gone. It just terrorizes the pets he owns. If anyone knows anything about this, please tell me. It would help. I'm Native American, and so is my father and siblings. My mother has very little, but there is some. We are not involved with any tribes, but I do enjoy looking, reading, and trying to be active in the Native culture. There are also plenty of tribes in the state I live in. A few weeks ago, I was asking my father about the tribes around here and asking if there was a possibility that skinwalkers could be up here. He kind of avoided the question, but did tell me that a tribe up north was notorious for murders, both by members and unexplained ones. I tried seeing if I could get any more answers from him, but there was nothing else. Now, time for the actual encounters. Both my sister and I have experienced them the most, but my brother has also had some unexplained scratching and whispering at night. It was rare, but it did happen. The encounter started at the beginning of the summer in 2017. Now, me and my sister share a room. She's always been scared of the dark. So, being the nice big brother I am, I have shared a room with her. Anyway, it was around maybe 11 p.m. when me and my sister heard a weird sound. It sounded like a bird call, but definitely not normal. It sounded like somebody with strep throat trying to mimic a crow. Both me and my sister kind of just looked up from our phones and gave each other a weird look. We live in an apartment complex that's located on the edge of a small town. The town is a druggy town, so for like the first hour, we thought it was just some druggie outside tripping out. But it lasted for about 3 hours. ending around 2 a.m. My sister had fallen asleep, and everything was quiet. But then I heard the big dogs down the road start barking like crazy. I thought it was just weird timing, or they saw an animal, but looking back, I think it might have been a skinwalker. A few weeks go by, and the same sound starts at around 10 p.m. or 11, and would usually end around 1 or 2 in the morning. At first, me and my sister did not really pay attention to it, and eventually thought it was actually just a weird bird. But one night, I had slept over at my friend's house, which was a trailer on the edge of town, right near mine. Me and my friend were just about to fall asleep on the couches when I heard the same sound. I sat straight up and looked over at my friend. "You heard that, right?" I had asked her, thinking it was just imaginary. "Yeah, it sounded like a bird. Why?" She told me back, probably thinking I was crazy. "Oh, it's nothing. I just hear that a lot." I replied back. If I told her, she probably would have believed me, but I just tried to make it seem like it was nothing. That night, the sound lasted until I fell asleep. Fast forward another week, and we are hearing the same sounds at night. My sister now was starting to get paranoid, and I was too, but I just told her it was nothing, just a dumb bird. At this point in the summer, I was listening to lots of skinwalker stories and starting connecting their similarities to what was happening to me. One night, me and my sister were just chilling in our beds with our window open when the noises started up again. This time, though, they sounded more ragged and sickly. They stopped pretty quickly after they started. Me and my sister just shrugged at each other and went back to our phones. When suddenly, right next to our window, we hear the most blood-curdling scream. It wasn't human. It sounded like a baby screaming, crossed with a dog yelping. With that sound ringing in our ears, me and my sister both jumped and she screamed, hiding under her covers. I honestly hid under my covers, with my heart racing. We waited, what seemed like hours, until my sister Whisper yelled at me, asking if it was safe. I had to put my big boy pants on and uncover to close the window. I did so rather quickly, but when I got to the window, nothing was there. My sister wanted to tell our parents, but I knew they would never believe us. The next day, though, I had asked if they heard anything, which they said they had not. I brought this stuff up to my 3 friends one night while having a sleepover. At first, most of them took it as a joke, but then I explained how I felt I was being followed and having a sense of dread 24/7. They then seemed to believe me, and I told them that I thought it followed me to their houses. And what freaked us all out was that night, my friend's dog started barking and growling like crazy. Afterwards, one of my friends had remarked, "Why did we become friends with a Native American?" It made us laugh and calmed the atmosphere the rest of the night. Back home, my sister had told me that the noises stopped while I was gone, which pretty much had confirmed to me that it was indeed following me. Constantly now, I was feeling dread and couldn't sleep at night. That scream ringing in my ears, and the sounds outside, increasing by each night, sounding more and more sickly. Like I said, this had been lasting all summer, so eventually, we just got used to it. Sometimes it sounded like there was more than one, but as long as it didn't get close, we didn't care. At my friend's house, it was still the same, paranoid of seeing it. Even walking my dogs at night freaked me out, because their gaze would fixate on something in the tree line, just out of my sight. They wouldn't bark or anything, just stare, then start sprinting towards home. I'd follow, gripping the leash so they wouldn't get away. It really freaked me out. One night, I caught a glimpse of it through the curtain crack. The noise had gotten closer. Me and my sister were prepared to hear another of those terrible screams. But no. I looked out the window as the wind blew, and I saw what I believe was the skinwalker. It looked so sickly and thin, its eyes sunken, and its face looked like it was scowling. I just stared at it until the curtain moved back. Then it was gone. The dread had filled me even more. After that, we heard less and less. Toward the end of the summer, we heard it again, and I decided to record the sound. It sounds weirder on the recording, but it's there. I wish there was a way to show it to you, but everything had died down until recently. I still have that constant feeling of dread, and I've become more paranoid, but I know what I've been experiencing and hearing is real. Last month, me, my siblings, and Dad saw a white deer. I know that means good luck, but just the other day, after my dad picked me up from work, he told me that on the way, he had seen a white wolf sitting on the side of the road, just watching the cars. I don't know if this is significant, but it's something to note. Also, my sister has been experiencing stuff while in her room. Just last week, she came running out of the room, saying she heard scratching at the window. It's all just super freaky and weird. I'm already kind of a paranoid guy, but this is all too weird to just be coincidences. I just hope it stops. I'd love to finally get a good night of sleep.